Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome to another episode of World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. Today we have a Tier 8 ranked battle here on the Sea of Fortune map. It's domination mode. Both teams consist of 3 destroyers, 1 aircraft carrier, and 2 extremely nervous battleships.
Son, the fight has begun! Where is your grin? I don't see it! The engine has been cranked! Full speed ahead!
Okay, I'm cranking the volume down so that we no longer have to listen to that. The world's most annoying ship captain. I mean, who even is that guy? Why is some teenager calling me son? I'm 53 years old, for God's sake. I don't have to put up with this shit. Yes, anyway. So, the matchmaking. Yeah. I mean, this is absolutely terrible matchmaking for a battleship. 3 destroyers and an aircraft carrier? Oh, it's not great matchmaking for a destroyer, of course, a class of ship that rely on stealth for their survival. So having aerial spotting available on both teams is definitely unwelcome. And while I say that the battleship should be particularly nervous because Flambas is in one of the destroyers, while that would normally be true because, I mean, Flambas made his name by being one of the best destroyer captains around in the early King of the Sea tournaments, he's not going to be going after the battleships today. Instead, he's going to be playing a longer strategy, and it's all about map control. You see, this map, the Sea of Fortune, has a very unusual and very tempting capture point arrangement, because capture point Bravo is actually inside capture point Alpha. So you can take them both at the same time, but it's very, very dangerous, especially when there's a carrier around. Even more so when there's a carrier and a whole bunch of destroyers, because you can avoid being spotted from the air by slipping into the cap circle, or circles in this case, and then popping your smoke. But with 3 destroyers and a carrier around, you have to expect that smoke screen to be flooded with torpedoes. And the Benson doesn't get hydro. Alright, that captain voiceover has proven to be even more annoying than I had originally thought. I'm going to have to crank the volume down even further. And yep, sure enough, here come the torpedoes. Now, the good thing about the Benson, actually there are a couple of good things about the Benson, although I feel it gets a kind of bad rap that it doesn't entirely deserve. Because it's got that American smoke, which takes a while to deploy and sticks around forever. And here come probably torpedoes from the Fantasque. Yeah. Oh, nicely dodged. Of course, he did slip out of his smoke screen, which means he did get spotted from the air. And yeah, now he's going to get shot at a lot. But he's managed to take those 2 cap circles, so he doesn't need to lurk around inside that smoke screen, just baiting torpedoes out any further, but he does have to go undetected. And he's managed to do that, and yet here come, I think that's all of the torpedoes. And it's first blood to the enemy team. Flambas's team have just lost one of their destroyers, the Kagero. But anyway, the Benson. Tier 8 US Navy destroyer that does get a bit of a bad rap, and I'm not entirely sure it completely deserves it. I mean, it's not a great ship by any stretch of the imagination, but at least it doesn't suck. So in that case, it's a massive upgrade over its predecessor at Tier 7, the Mayhan, or the Marne, or however the hell you pronounce it. I mean, on paper, there's not a lot to choose from between the Tier 7 and the Tier 8, the Benson here. They even have the same kind of sucky torpedoes. Technically, the Mayhan is the first American destroyer where you can actually stealth torpedo, because it gets the Mark 15 Mod 0 torpedoes that the Benson starts with. The only problem is they are horribly, horribly slow. Nearly 10 knots slower than the default torpedoes that the Mayhan starts with. The Benson has a choice of 2 different types of Mark 15 torpedoes, neither of which go faster than 55 knots. Oh, more enemy torpedoes coming from the rear. You notice, of course, how he's angling towards the nearest. I mean, he's got the RPF skill. That sort of white arc that you can see on the top of the screen. He's been spotted from the air again, indicating the direction to the closest enemy ship. So he's always keeping the ship angled against any torpedo threat from whoever's closest. Unfortunately, it's the air threat that's the big problem, particularly since the carrier on the enemy team is a cargo. Now, the cargo's party piece is that it basically never runs out of aircraft, so it doesn't matter how many of them you shoot down. You're going to have to crank the engine boost here in order to get a quick reverse off as quickly as possible and dodge the second wave of torpedo attack planes. Here they come. See, the cargo's a tier 8 aircraft carrier, but it gets tier 6 aircraft, and you might think that's a good thing, and I suppose it is, because it does mean that you do get to shoot quite a few of them down. Oh, and straight ahead. Yep, dodged them all. But the number of cargo aircraft that you shoot down is basically irrelevant, because it's just there to make you feel better about being under constant air attack, because the cargo basically has a huge air wing. And while, since the carrier rework, there's no real such thing in this game anymore as a aircraft carrier that can run out of aircraft, but towards the end of a battle, other carriers can and often do end up having to send depleted, not full squadrons out to get their work done. But that doesn't really happen to the cargo, because it's got so many of them. It has a colossal and virtually unexhaustible supply of aircraft. So it's not unusual when you're being focused down by a cargo, assuming you survive it, to earn the Air Defense Expert Award medal, but it's completely meaningless because you are never going to run the cargo out of aircraft, no matter how many of them you shoot down. Now this is kind of bad, because he's in a gunfight with a Fantask, and he's spotted from the air. So he pops the smoke again, and he's got to get as much damage on that ship as he can before he goes unspotted, which means angling the ship to get the 3 rear turrets firing as well. And it's gone undetected. Oh well. Probably going to be more torpedoes though. I mean, why wouldn't there be? So backing up again behind the rocks. And good news, bad news situation. They have knocked out one of the enemy battleships, but they have lost another destroyer. And Flambas is now the last surviving destroyer on the team. They've also lost one of their battleships. So they're now not quite outnumbered 2-1, but as close as. And while he's now technically blind inside this smoke screen, the friendly carrier, the Yorktown, is sending aircraft overhead. And the RPF indicator is still pointing in the rough direction of the Fantask. Oh, it just switched. Oh, there's the Fantask. He can probably get some shots out. And he might actually clip him with one of those torpedoes. I mean, he's going to have plenty of warning that they're coming because they're so incredibly slow, but they do have a 9.2 kilometer range, so it is not inconceivable that he might actually manage to catch one, although unlikely. The Kagero just popped up. It is now the closest enemy ship over there somewhere. More torpedoes incoming. Looks like the Fantastic just took a hit from something. Wasn't one of Flambas's torpedoes. The friendly Lenin has just managed to get a kill. They're now only 1 kill behind. There's still a couple of 100 points up though, largely due to Flambas's work here in these 2 cap circles, which of course is why he's still sticking around here in order to flip one of them back. I think it was just Alpha, the larger of the 2 concentric cap circles, rather than doing anything. Oh, enemy Kagero. He's going for the carrier. That's bad. When you're the last destroyer left alive on the team against 3 destroyers and a carrier, you really need every advantage you can get, and that biggest advantage is the presence of the friendly carrier. Because when you're lurking around inside these smoke screens, you're not doing any spotting. So he really needs to do everything possible to keep that Yorktown alive. I mean, it'd be nice to keep the Lenin alive as well, but, well, he's a battleship in a game with a carrier and 3 destroyers. He's basically been on his own since this game started. And the Lenin's been doing all right, but, I mean, let's face it, he's doomed. The carrier, however, he might be able to do something.
The engine has been cranked. Full speed ahead.
Yeah, the Lenin's dead. Now, he needs to catch the Kagero, because he's not quite inside shooting range. He doesn't have a lot of health. So he can, and easily should, even without the health advantage, be able to take a Kagero in a gunfight, but he's got to catch him. And the Kagero's not slow. Oh wait, he's turning back. Alright. Both ships are running their engine boost. And the Yorktown is of course aware that he's being hunted. And he's sending his aircraft out to spot him. And I think that's why the Kagero was turning back. And that should, yep, allow Flambas to get close enough to get some long-range shots off. Now the ballistic properties of these shells are kind of floaty. So you do need to nowhere to aim with this thing, but Flambass is not new to this. He's been around the block a few times in American destroyers. He understands the ballistic properties of their 127mm guns. He nails the Kagero. They have lost the Lenin, of course, so it's just him and the carrier. And yeah, Kagero torpedoes are fairly obvious under those circumstances. But he's been spotted again, and this is, I mean, there's basically nothing he can do about it. The smoke on these American destroyers is very, very good, but it does have a long cooldown. It's not like the British smoke, where it doesn't last very long, but you can basically spam it. And that's a significant factor in, because I do keep threatening to talk. Oh, that wasn't a very good drop. Good. I do keep threatening to talk about why the Mayhem is terrible and the Benson isn't. I promise we'll get round to it. But for now, he's gotten himself into a gunfight. And again, I mean, it's a gunfight that he should win, providing he doesn't steam around the corner of this island and straight into the obvious Kagero torpedoes. Yep, obvious torpedoes are obvious. The Kagero might have been able to do something here if he bothered using his guns, but of course he pulled a turn there, so the guns are all pointing the wrong way. Oh, no, we're good. We've got a gap. We're fine. I don't think he would have been able to sink Flambass, but he would have been able to do some damage at least. Notice the damage that Flambass took there when the Kagero finally got its rear turrets firing. Because Japanese torpedo destroyers tend to have kind of bad guns, but they're bad guns that hit really hard. So while he probably wouldn't have been able to sink Flambass there, I mean, you saw how much damage he did inflict when just one salvo landed. But Japanese torpedo destroyer captains tend to focus on their torpedoes to the exclusion of all else, when using their guns might have been a better choice under the circumstances. Still spotted from the air, of course, still absolutely nothing he can do about it, but he does need to retake this cap circle, because the enemy team have 2, and his team don't have any, thanks to the surviving destroyer on the enemy team, the Fantask over there. And any second now, he's done it. And just in time, because here comes the Kaga again. So while he's shooting down... Oh, and there's the Kaga itself. Okay. While he's shooting down yet more aircraft that don't actually mean anything, the Mayhem at tier 7, on paper, almost exactly the same as the Benson at tier 8, but with one significant difference. And I'm not talking about the torpedoes, because eventually the Mayhem does get Benson torpedoes. The Mayhem has absolutely terrible stealth, and the Benson has pretty good stealth. And that is the basic difference between the two ships. And when you're sailing a class of ship that relies on stealth, and there's the Air Defense Expert Award, and no, it hasn't made the slightest bit of difference, but when you're sailing a class of ship that relies on stealth for its survivability, when you've got bad stealth, you've got a bad ship. Well, hang on, Jingles. What about the French destroyers that have terrible stealth and don't even have a smokescreen? Yeah, but they're fast. That's not something you can say of either the Benson or the Mayhem. French destroyers don't rely on stealth for their survivability. He's not going to be able to get torpedoes away there. The Kaga's sailing behind the island. He's not even going to be able to sink him. Even if he sets a fire, I mean, fires are basically meaningless for aircraft carriers in this game as well, because what aircraft carrier in history ever got sunk as a result of being set on fire? You know, aside from all of them. But French destroyers, like the Fantask on the enemy team, rely on speed for their survivability, and neither the Benson nor the Mayhem at tier 7 are particularly fast. He has to avoid getting hit and reset here, because he's busy flipping both of these cap circles. The Fantask is going for the Yorktown, who's seen it coming, and he's steaming in the opposite direction and taking them on with his dive bombers. There's not a huge amount that Flambass can do to help the Yorktown out at the moment. The Kaga finally manages to score a hit on him, but not until he'd already flipped both of those cap circles. So, I mean, he's 400 points ahead here because he's focused on map control, because he's focused on these cap circles rather than chasing the kills. And he's gotten kills, but it came as a result of very carefully picking and choosing the fights that he got into, rather than just looking for the kills. Take the kills where necessary, going after the Kagero and keeping the Yorktown alive, for example, and then finishing off the other Kagero in a gunfight. Well, it was a gunfight on his half. It was a badly misjudged torpedo fight on the behalf of the enemy Kagero. And now, thanks to his careful map control, he has all 3 of the cap circles, he's up to 972 points and he's about to win. So why is he getting into a fight with the Kaga? Well, he doesn't have any choice. Right. I don't think he's actually trying to sink the Kaga here. It's unlikely that his slow-ass 55-knot torpedoes are going to catch him. And while conventional wisdom says when you're ahead on points, you run away and hide and run the timer down, he was in a fight with the Kaga whether he wanted to or not. So he didn't really lose anything in the time remaining by scoring some more damage and earning some more experience. But it was not the kills, although in particular the kill on the Kagero that was chasing down the Yorktown was fairly significant. But it was the map control that won this battle and earned him more than 3,000 base experience in this Tier 8 ranked battle here on the Sea of Fortune map. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a thing or two from it. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.